Hi, this is Jennifer Coluciello, and today we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about gender and inequality in a few different areas. The first question that was raised is, why does pay inequality exist? Well, I think for this answer, I think there's actually a couple different things at play. I think the first thing is that there are still, even today, many people who still implicitly view men as smarter than women. In Verywell Mind, there was a study published back in 2020, and in that study on implicit bias, they were able to identify from numerous people in numerous countries that overall 75% of those surveyed still felt that men were smarter than women. So that right off the bat tells you that people are, whether consciously or unconsciously, viewing women as not quite as smart, and therefore may not actually be paying them because they think they're getting less for their pay, so they're decreasing the amount of their salary. A second thing is that for a very, very long time, women were not the primary income earners within a family structure and a family unit. And so if a female was going to work, it was for extra money, not necessarily for the full responsibility of the fiscal needs of the family. And so if they needed to cover less, then they may not be getting paid as much. Unfortunately, that has changed as we have gone from mostly a single income family to a dual income family structure. The third reason that I think is at play here is that some people actually think that women are dividing their attention between family and children and the house and the home life and their work requirements and responsibilities. And if people think that they are getting a split attention and not getting the full attention of their employee, they are probably prone to paying less for that. And that's something that's definitely a consideration. I think a combination of the three, thinking that men are smarter, that women are not the primary earners, and that women have a split attention, means they're not quite getting as much for their pay. They're not getting as much of a return on that investment. And so the tendency would be then to pay less since they think they are getting less. The second question that was raised is, well, what is gender inequality specifically to me? And how can I reduce that within my day-to-day life? So gender inequality for me is really a very, very basic concept. It's just where one gender is not getting the same options, the same choices, benefits, opportunities as another. That could be either by active prioritization and active action, or it could be passive, even by unconscious bias. But something where I am not afforded the same items as a man, or a man is not afforded the same opportunities as a female, to be honest. I think a lot of this has to do with understanding what the gender roles and stereotypes are that exist within whatever your day-to-day world is, whether that's workplace or personal life or so forth. Personally, for me, I work in two capacities. I have two different jobs. One is as the director of compliance for a large medical practice, and the second one is actually as an EMS instructor for EMTs and paramedics for the state of New Jersey. While the inequality may not seem as big in the healthcare practice that I work in, it is definitely something that we work at making sure it does not exist. How we do that is by making sure that there are very clear-cut pay structures around knowledge, skills, and abilities analysis, as well as roles, oversight of the position, and the risk taken and mitigated by that position. We try to make it very, very objective instead of subjective. That's one of the ways that I work to reduce that in my world, specifically from that job. When it comes to the EMS side, this is a harder subculture to work in, since it is much more ingrained in that fire, police, and EMS is a man's world, not a female's world. And there are definite physical needs in that job And quite oftentimes women are looked at like, okay, great, here we have a woman come in. Are they going to be able to lift? Are they going to be able to think fast enough? Are they going to freak out and get emotional in the middle of a bad call? And these inequalities, they're much harder to deal with. And so when it comes to that world, we do a lot of things like making sure people are at their best physically, and we do physical aptitude training and assessments to make sure that they can lift a certain amount. But we also do work as far as ergonomics and making sure that both genders understand that each of them are better at certain things. Specifically when it comes to lifting, men power through things with their arms, whereas women think more endurance and long terms, and we use our legs more. So I work not only to make sure that things are objective and that everybody can in fact actually physically do the job, but we also work to make sure that all of our team members understand the pros and cons of each musculoskeletal system and how to work around them, and also understand that it is never a problem to ask for help to do a certain component of the job. And we work very, very hard on that, as well as mitigating discrimination and how to have a good, healthy workplace environment and effective communication and all of those things. So there is a lot more time and effort spent in the EMS side of my world to mitigate those problems and mitigate any potential inequality that happens there. The third question that was raised is about gender roles and stereotypes. So how do these affect our lives today, tomorrow, and moving forward? And what does that look like moving forward? Are we able to actually make a change there? So interestingly, when it comes to the roles and stereotypes here, I've actually already touched on several of them. You know, we've gone from a single income family structure to most people now needing dual incomes. That has changed what that structure and gender role assignment within the household itself looks like. You know, there are a lot of non-glamorous sides of having a family. You know, who's going to handle the homework? Who's doing the dishes? Who's doing the cooking? Who's handling the trash? There are so many different things that have to be addressed. And there now are more conversations than ever happening between couples as to what do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? Let's look at our strengths and weaknesses, and how can we take the totality of what we need to accomplish in a household and in our family, and how do we divide that equitably, but also smartly? An example of that would be, so the vacuuming in the house. I'm a little obsessive when it comes to cleaning, but I hate to vacuum. And frankly, I have really bad asthma. And so doing the vacuuming component where it stirs up the dust really aggravates my breathing. And that creates not only something that I don't like to do, but it also creates a physical problem for me. And so my husband, who does not like to clean, actually handles all of the floor, the vacuuming and the sweeping and the mopping, because one, he doesn't like to clean, so we're dividing things equitably. But two, it also makes more sense for him to do it because it doesn't harm him. And so we're able to work within those needs and wants to figure out what works, but still get everything done. In addition, I also touched on the fact that with the EMS world specifically, there is many, many different stigmas that exist around what a woman can and cannot handle. And is she going to be emotional? Is she not? Or even, can the men be emotional, and can they try to be compassionate and empathetic towards their patients and the patient's family? And we do a lot of things around that. Thankfully, I'm really, really hopeful about where we are going as a society and in EMS and healthcare as a subculture when it comes to it. Frankly, we're having more of these conversations. We're talking about these things. We're even talking about these needs and these underlying stigmas and unconscious bias and how they then impact our work environment and then our productivity and the performance that we actually function at. And doing that has actually created a better work environment, which has then helped for patient care, which has also helped to improve the mental health of the people that we work with. Between that and other groups that are raising awareness and working to change some of those laws and bring some of these things to the forefront. I think the fact that we are having these discussions on a governmental level, as well as an agency level, as well as an independent person level within my family, I think that's really, really great, because the old adage applies. The first step in fixing a problem is to identify a problem. And as a result, I think we're making headway. It may not be as fast as I would like, but we are making headway. So that kind of sums up my basic view of gender roles, gender equality, and some of where we are today. And I've listed here several references as well. And thank you.